Thanks for checking out this video. Today we're going to create a transparent login form with a little bit of animation, and we're only going to use HTML and CSS. So let's get started. I've got a project open here with a couple of images that we're going to use, and I'll go ahead and create our index.html. And I'll create our style CSS as well. I'm going to close the sidebar and let's get started on the HTML. We'll use emit, create a boilerplate. We'll name this login form demo. And let's go ahead and include our CSS link as well. Alright, now let's start with our HTML. We're going to begin with a div with the class of login wrapper. Within that we'll have our form, and we'll have the class of form on there. We're going to leave the action blank because we're not actually going to do anything with this. We're just going to build the UI. Right within here we're going to have an image, and it's going to be our avatar. After the image we'll have an H2, and we'll say login. After the H2 we'll have a div with the class of input group. And these are going to be our inputs, so we'll have an input with a type of text, and that is going to have an ID of login user, and we'll just name it the same, login user, that's fine. And we're going to set this as required. And then we'll have our label, and this is going to be for our login user. So this is going to be username. Alright, so let's copy this down, Alt-Shift down arrow. We're going to duplicate that. And this time it's going to be a password input. And we'll change login user to password. Control D there to select multiple. Alright, and then we'll change this to password. Alright, so after that, within our form still, we're going to have another input. The type will be submit, and it's going to have a class of submit button. The value will just say login. After that, we're going to have an anchor with the class of forgot password, PW. And here we're going to go to the ID of forgot password, PW. And then in here we'll say forgot password, question mark. Okay, now after this we're actually going to have another form, and that's going to show up if we click the forgot password. So after this form we're going to have another div, and this is going to have the ID of forgot password, PW. Within that we'll have another form with the class of form, no action. We'll have an anchor with the class of close. So this is going to be at times. So that's going to show an X. So that's how we will dismiss this form. Then we'll have an H2 here, and we'll say reset password. Alright, and then we'll have another input group here. So let me just copy this one from here. Alright, this input group, this is going to be an email this time, and we'll just change this to email. That's fine. Alright, and then we'll change this to email as well. And lastly, we're going to have another submit, so we'll just copy this. And this time, instead of login, we will say submit. Alright, so that is going to be it for the HTML. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to hit go live so that we can see this with live server. Alright, so that looks pretty much done, right? Oh, okay. Let's look at this CSS now. Alright, so we'll start out with our normal resets. We'll set the margin to 0 and the padding to 0. We'll set box sizing to border box, right? And then in the body, set the background to a URL, and that's going to be our background.jpg. We're going to say no repeats and center. And then our background size, we're going to set that to cover. And then our font family, font family to sans serif. All right, let's save that. All right, font is looking better. Oops, I forgot to put that as in our image folder. There we go. Save that now. Now we have our image. After that, we'll work on our login wrapper. In here, we'll set our height to 100 view height and our width to 100 view width. We're going to display this as flex, justify content center, and align items center. All right, and so if you're not familiar with Flex, I've got a Flexbox video as well. I'll put a link in the description. All right, so let's save that, see what we have. Okay, that's looking better. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and target the forgot password, and that is going to be display none, just for now. We'll get to that one in a minute. All right, now let's look at the form. And in the form, let's go down here, we're going to position this relative with a width of 100% and a max width of 380 pixels. Padding, we're going to set that to 80 pixels on the top and 40 pixels on the left and right, and then 40 pixels on the bottom. We'll set a background on here. We'll set that to RGBA of black with a 0.7 on the opacity or the alpha channel. And then we'll add a border radius. We'll set that to 10 pixels. And then color, we'll set that to white. And then we'll add a box shadow. And we'll set that to 0, 15 pixels, 25 pixels, and RGBA again. This time it'll be a 0.5. All right, so let's save that and see where we're at. All right, that's looking better. So now we're going to look at our form and before. We're going to add a little bit of extra style here. We're going to set the content to blank. If you're not familiar with pseudo elements, I've got a video on that as well. We'll set the position on here to absolute, top 0, left 0, a width of 50%, a height of 100%. I'll set the background to RGBA. This time it'll be a white with a 0.8 opacity, and we'll add the background. There we go. Okay, and then we'll set the border radius. We'll set that to 10 pixels as well. All right, let's save that and see what we have so far. That is a bit too bright. I meant to do 0.08. There we go. Very slight, subtle difference there. And we can do different things with this. We'll come back to that in a minute. So after we did that, we actually can't select the inputs anymore unless we go right here. So what we need to do to fix that is we need to do pointer events and set that to none. All right, now we can select our inputs. All right, let's work on the image. Actually, let's go back here. I think I forgot to, yep, this should be image directory and then avatar. That looks great. All right, so let's continue on. Let's work on that image next. So we'll look at the form image. We'll set this to a position of absolute. Top, we're going to set that to a negative 50 pixels. And then we're going to do a calculation on the left. We're going to do 50% minus 50 pixels. And then set the width to 100 pixels. And let's see what we have so far. So where I got these values from, so I wanted the width of it to be 100 pixels, and this is a square. So that means it's going to be 100 pixels high as well. I wanted half of that, so 50 pixels, and then I need to calculate 50% minus 50, and that will center it and put it just a little above the top of the form. All right, and then we want to add a background on this, RGBA with the white, and this time it's going to be 0.8. And then a border radius And we're going to set this to 50%, so that's going to make it a circle. Save that. All right. Next, let's style the H2. So it's going to be form H2. We're going to text align this to center. I'm going to add some letter spacing, 1 pixel. Margin on bottom, we'll set that to 2 rem. And we'll set the color on that to an orange. Save that. There we go. All right, now let's work on our inputs. So we'll target the form and then the input group. And the only thing we're going to do on this is we're going to set the position to relative. After that, we'll go to our form and the input group and then the input. So on this, we'll have a width of 100%, padding of 10 pixels top and bottom, 0 left and right. I want the font size to be 1 rem. We're going to add some letter spacing on this as well, 1 pixel. We'll add some margin on the bottom, 30 pixels. We'll need to add border none to get rid of the initial borders, but on the border bottom, I do want 1 pixel solid, and we'll set that to white. And then we want our outline to be none. Then we'll set the background color to transparent. And the font color, we'll set that to inherit. Save that. That's looking pretty good so far. There's our inputs. All right, now let's work on the labels. So this is going to be the form and then our input group and then our label. We're going to position this to absolute as well. Top of 0, left of 0, padding 10 pixels, top and bottom, 0 left and right. Font size 1 rem. We'll need to set the pointer events on this one as well to none. Let's save that and see where we're at. All right, so now they're right here in the middle, and if we start typing, the words are on top of it, right? So that's not going to work. So we're going to include a little bit of animation here. All right, so we're going to add a transition here of 0.3 seconds ease out. All right, so then let's look at the form, input group, input focus, and then label. So this is the reason why we put the label after the input, because we need to be able to target the input when it's focused and then the label. So we have our plus selector here, which means the sibling just after. So when the input is focused, we want the label to transform, and we're going to translate Y, and we'll go -18 pixels, and we want the color to change to the orange color, and we want the font size as well to go down to, I'll say 0.8 rem. All right, let's save that and see what we have now. All right, so now when I click on it, it moves up and changes color. There we go. Okay, so now an issue that we're going to have here, let's go ahead and just type something in. And you see now it comes back down, even though there's something in there. So what we need to do is we actually need to add another selector here. And this time we're going to select, instead of focus, we want valid. So now save that. And now as long as the input is valid, it's going to stay up there. And if I remove that, then the label will come back down. There we go. All right, so now let's style the submit button. All right, so that was .submit, submit button. All right, we're going to display this as block, a margin left of auto, so I want to push that off to the right. We're going to set a border of none, outline of none. We'll set the background to our orange. Font size, we'll set that to 1 rem. Text transform, uppercase. We're going to set letter spacing on here, 1 pixel. Padding is going to be 10 pixels top and bottom, and 20 pixels left and right. I'll put a border radius on here of 5 pixels, and then cursor pointer. All right, let's save that. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now let's look at our forgot password text, or the link there. So that's going to be the class of forgot pw, and we just want to set the color on that to inherit. So that should be a white. There we go. All right, so this is looking pretty good. All right, so now let's look at our, if we hit forgot password, let's see, if we hit it now, nothing happens. So in order to do that, so let's style the forgot password form now. So we're going to set the position on this to absolute. We're going to display this as flex, justify content center, align items center. And then we're going to set the top to 0, left to 0, and right to 0. And initially we want the height to be 0. We're going to set a z index on here of 1 so that it's on top of everything else. We're going to set a background to white, and initially an opacity of 0. And we'll set a transition on here of 0.6 seconds. Let's save that. Of course, we're not going to we're not going to see anything there now. But what it's going to do here is it's going to position it at the top, left and right, so it's going to be all the way across, full width, height of 0, and then what we're going to use is the target pseudo class. So back in our HTML, in the link we have our target defined as this div, right? And so what we can do in CSS, we can look at forgot password and then use the pseudo class of target. All right, so when we click the target, we want the height to be 100% and the opacity to be 1. All right, so let's save that. So now if we hit forgot password, that's what we see. If we hit the X, it goes back. Let's style the close now. So that was a class of close. So we'll position that absolute. We want to be a right of 1.5 rem and a top of 0.5 rem. Font size, we're going to set that to 2 rem. Font weight of 900. Text decoration none. And color will be inherit. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, so that is pretty much it. I do want to show you one other thing. So on the pseudo element of this background, we could do a lot of things with this. So this is all part of the UI design. You can do whatever you like, but we could do a transform on here. We could skew. Actually, let's just skew X. So we're going to skew horizontally. And we could do, let's see, negative 26 degrees. That should take us off to the right. All right, so that creates a bit of a design there. But I want to change the transform origin. I want it to skew from the bottom left. So now the bottom left of the pseudo element is going to be our pivot position. So the bottom left is always going to be in its initial position, and everything else will skew from there. So just a little neat trick. Play around with these numbers and make it your own. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. So before you go, if you liked this video, a thumbs up is appreciated. I upload new content every week, so hit subscribe and the bell to get notified. And if you think this video or any of the videos on my channel might be helpful to someone else, please share them. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at CodeStacker. Thanks for watching.